In today's video, we're going to discuss a key talking point that I recently had in a lesson to help a client gain 17 yards on his 6 iron. So, without further ado, let's get stuck into it and find out what that lesson was all about. So what was the key talking point that we discussed in the lesson to help the player gain more yardage with much more efficient strike? Well, that key talking point was the way this lead arm maintains its shape at setup all the way to the top of the swing. Towards the start of the lesson, we were seeing this lead arm break down in a fashion where it kind of had a visual of looking like this towards the top of the swing. So it was really leading to a lack of distance, as we already discussed, and a lack of strike in there as well for a few reasons. Because the lead arm, when it works correctly in conjunction with the wrist, which we'll talk about shortly, this acts as a big power lever in the golf swing. So not only helps you to store power much more efficiently, but helps you to deliver the power into the golf ball in a much more consistent way as well. And on the topic of consistency, the reason why I'm a big fan of the lead arm staying straight when it comes to consistency in strike is if we think about the club head being a laser pen, and the laser pen creates a nice big circle throughout the swing, the radius of that circle and the way we maintain the shape of that circle as well is largely dictated by the lead arm. So our ability to keep that lead arm straight throughout the swing helps us to maintain the radius and maintain the circle in the swing, and in turn the delivery and the consistency of where the low point of this golf club is as well. If I collapse this lead arm, I'm then now going to do two things. I can maintain it, and then I'm going to see a chicken wing on the way for the ball, and the club head's going to be quite high off the floor. So unless I compensate myself in any way, fins and tops are what we can see there, or we could overcompensate and re-extend this left arm too aggressively, too early, and I could potentially drive this golf club into the ground too early and too excessively in there as well. So we're going to talk about three really important keys, really important moves that we discussed in the lesson to help the lead arm maintain its shape much more efficiently, really simply in there as well, to see that's those 17 yards that we saw with the 6 iron, and also with those more consistent strikes combined in there as well. So the starting point here for us is the grip. And the reason the grip is so important is in this particular lesson, and a common fault which I see in many amateurs is they were gripping the golf club too much in the palm. Whenever we grip the golf club too much in the palm, that disencourages any kind of mobility and flexibility here in the wrist. And when I see that, it's very difficult / impossible for the wrist to move in the correct way, particularly in this kind of motion, a hinging motion. So if the wrist cannot move in that way because of a poor grip, that's when we start to see a compensation and a breakdown in that lead arm on the way back. So starting point for me, or a checkpoint, and definitely something that we changed in this particular lesson to make sure we're gripping it properly, and definitely something I encourage you guys to have a look at if this is a move that you struggle with. And we really want to make sure we are gripping the golf club in the base of the fingers. So definitely not too much in the tips. We don't want it too much in the palm as well. But if you can grip the golf club from the crease towards the end of your index finger towards the bottom of your small finger, then that's a really good place for the club to sit. And you can go about checking that by taking your thumb and index finger off the golf club, and if you can cradle the golf club quite comfortably through those remaining 3 fingers, we now know we've got the grip in a really good place to help us with our wrist mobility and definitely see this hinging of the joint so that there's less of a want, less of a need for this lead arm to break down. Number 2, and this leads quite closely on to number 3, is our ability to pivot, to rotate, and rotate in a very centered fashion. Again, with this particular gentleman, we were seeing very minimal rotation, especially in the hips, and we're seeing quite a lot of slide. So coupled with obviously a poor grip, we were seeing a very slidey and collapsing motion. So once we got the grip in the right place, we wanted to attack the pivot. So it's how these hips rotate in a centered fashion. So you can get a feel for that by putting the golf club across your belt buckle and getting that button of the golf club back and behind you. But a really good drill that we did with this particular gentleman, which I'm going to show you here on the side, is we had a ball, we put it right up against the wall here, kept the gentleman in his golf posture and asked him to roll the ball up against that wall by the rotation of his pelvis. If he could do that in a way where the ball was rolling but not coming off the wall, that indicates to us that the pelvis is rotating, and we're rotating in a very centered way because we are not sliding away from the golf ball. So once we got a feel for that, we then let our arms hang and took a grip as best as we could, and then tried to roll the ball in that fashion as well. And we've now built a good backswing, which is coupled with a good solid setup in the grip there as well. So once we got a feel for what it was like to roll that ball up against the wall, we went back to the tee, just re-educated ourselves on the grip, And whilst that feeling was fresh in our head, make some rolls of the ball up against that wall to the top. And straight away that lead arm was nice and straight. Our lower half, especially the pelvis, is nice and rotated in a centered fashion. And it gave us the third key almost for free, and that is width. And the way I would measure width, especially if you're a right-handed player, if you think about your right hand, so your right thumb, can you get it in a position towards the top of the swing where it is quite far away from your right ear, almost as far away as it could be. And you'll find that by having a good solid grip and a good solid pivot, that will almost start to happen quite naturally. But it's definitely something you can think about just to keep on top of it. So just to recap for the end of the video, the three really important keys that we want to see to maintain the shape of this lead arm for much better strike, much better distance is number one, can we grip the golf club towards the fingers, especially in the lead hand? Okay, so base the fingers, then take the grip, and then just have that sensation of using the pelvis just like I showed you there in the video and rolling that ball up against the wall. You'll find by doing that, your lead arm's going to stay nice and straight. You're going to get width really easily, so the right hand's further away from you, and then you can think about coming through and hitting the ball from there. So let's give it a go. Get yourself set up, making sure my lead hand grip's in a good place. And I'm just thinking about rolling that ball, my lead arm staying nice and straight as a result. I've got good solid width. I'm going to give it a go from there. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop me a comment in the comment section down below, and drop me a follow on my socials. For any online or in-person coaching, drop me a follow on the SKILLEST app, search David Atkins, and drop me a comment from there. But until next time, catch you on the next one.